Well, hello everybody. This recording is being done in my studio in Toowoomba. It's a re-record of the address that I gave to you guys at the BCA conference. Unfortunately, on the day, the sound failed, so I've had to re-record this. So now that I'm doing this from home, I'm actually speaking to a camera and I don't have you guys there as the live audience, so the atmosphere is a little bit different from what it was when I was speaking to you on the day. But I do want you to have this recording so that you can take it away with you and look at it again and share it with others, because it might be useful to others that you know as well. And of course, some of you weren't there on the day, you had to go for various reasons. So I'm just going to pick this up from where I was and give you the presentation as close as possible to the way it was on the day. Thank you so much for having me with you today. It's an absolute delight for me to be here, and I'm so glad to Stephanie for having invited me to be with you at this conference. I want to talk to you today about resilience. Now, having met some of you already and having talked with some of you already, I feel like normally I'm an academic, so normally I'm the expert and I'm talking to people who know less about this subject than I do. But I'm probably the newest diagnosee here today, so I'm the baby of this group, and I feel a bit out of my depth a little bit talking to you, because you are really the experts now. And however, for that reason, I'm not going to talk a lot about my bladder experience, because you've all been there, you've all done that, you've all got a lot more experience than I do. So what I want to do is to focus on some of the other aspects of my life that go towards building resilience. Now, just a couple of call outs. First of all, the t-shirt that you've seen me wearing around the place with the bladder cancer t-shirt, that is thanks to Graham Strang at Hip Pocket in Toowoomba. Those t-shirts are available for you to purchase if you want to. They're $11.95 plus postage. If you just send me an email or message me or whatever, so that I can get your information. I'll organise for Graham to print you a shirt. You'll have to send me a size and so on, of course. The other thing is, in the pack that you've got a chocolate, and the chocolate has the blood in your pee thing on the front of it. Those were produced by my cousin Graham Bullis at Chocolate Works here in Melbourne. So thank you, Graham. They're a wonderful addition to today. Just wanted to give those couple of call outs. I just want to let you know how awesome I think you guys are. I've had a little bit of time now to be able to get to know you, and I feel like I know you, lots of you, pretty well from Facebook, and we've been talking, and you guys just blow me away. You're just so awesome. You're so supportive and wonderful. It just blows me away. Now, I own a radio station in Gatton in Queensland, or at least I co-own it. And I just want to give a shout out to my mate Jeff, my business partner Jeff, who runs the Toowoomba station and co-owns the Gatton station with me. We've had a bladder cancer ad running on our stations for quite a while now, so thank you to Jeff for that. You would also have noticed that because we're broadcasting this today, I also own an online television station, and this broadcast will go out. Well, the original broadcast had the audio turned on, would have been going out live to an audience of probably 5,000, between 5,000 and 20,000 people around the world. I should just give a shout out to my gorgeous wife, Yukia, because it's because she's not here that this sound is not working. Normally she would take care of all that stuff. She's the brains of the business, and I love her for that. Because she's not here, the sound collapsed on the day, and I didn't have anybody to fix it for me. So next year I'll bring her with me. Now, my journey, I was diagnosed in September last year with non-muscle invasive bladder cancer. I've gone through an iteration of, well, I've gone through one trial of BCG, which failed quite dramatically, unfortunately. But my journey begins, or my medical journey begins a long time before that. When I was 7, I was run over by a motor car. And in that accident, I lost half a kidney, had my kidney severed and lost half of that kidney. And that, as a result of that accident, I very nearly died in hospital. Spent a long time there. I had post-operative complications with my bowel. So I was behind a lot in a lot of things, including my schooling. Now, one of the things that resulted from that accident and the trauma of that was that I then developed epilepsy. And it wasn't too bad to start with. The first few years of my epilepsy were really a matter of having what's called absences, which simply meant that I disappeared for a little while and wasn't part of the conversation and wasn't around people, or at least I wasn't aware that I was around people. Now, my epilepsy developed quite slowly at first, and it wasn't really a huge bother to me. But in my last year of school, during puberty, it really started to take a hold of me. And in that last year of schooling, I spent more time being dragged out from under toilet doors at school, where I'd gotten myself locked into a toilet and couldn't get out, than I did in the classroom. So I left school at 15 because I could no longer cope with all of that. Now, when you develop something like epilepsy that becomes increasingly bad over time and impacts your life, you've got two decisions. One is that you crawl up in the corner, curl up in the corner, and you say, woe is me, life is terrible, and I just want to die. Now, the other decision is that you actually take a hold of it and say, no, this is not going to beat me. I'm going to be in control of this. I'm going to control what happens with my life, and I'm not going to be a victim to this. Now, that was the decision that I made. I made the decision that I was going to live life, and I wasn't going to be a victim. I wasn't going to curl up in the corner and die. I was going to make the best of what I had. So with that in mind, and I had been working with the deaf community, and I had been an interpreter, sign language interpreter in the deaf community for a long time. I had done quite a bit of work in education with deaf kids, and with the insurance payout that I got from the accident that I had when I was a kid, when I was 21, I decided that I would start doing some research. So I planned a world tour. So I set up a 9-month overseas world research tour looking at education of the deaf all over the world. That was 9 months long, And my father was absolutely out of his mind when I decided that I was going to do this world tour, partly because I was still having seizures. And in fact, on the day that I picked up my passport and my traveller's checks and my itinerary and all of my tickets for my trip, I walked out of the tourist office and walked down the street, had a seizure and handed everything to the first person in the street. It wasn't then until I came out of my seizure that I suddenly realised, oh dear, I've just given everything that I own to the first guy that I saw in the street. Fortunately, he handed it in to somebody and I was able to get it all back. But my father was aghast at the idea that here I was in Adelaide handing something to the corner. What about if you're in Russia and you hand stuff to somebody in the street in Russia? What's going to happen then? But I decided again that I wasn't going to let that stop me. I wasn't going to let it beat me. I just had to keep going, that's all. So I did that world tour. I have had seizures in almost every country that you can think of. I have some really funny stories about the things that happened when I had seizures overseas, including being arrested in East Germany and a few other things like that. But I won't share those with you today. I'll keep those for another time. Now, after that world tour, I then went back a couple of years later. I went back to the United States. That was 1975, by the way. So a couple of years after that, I went back to the United States and I did my undergraduate degree at a university in Louisville in Kentucky in the US. And still having seizures. Now, I returned in 1980. I graduated and returned to Australia and started working amongst the deaf community. And for some reason, and I'm not quite sure why, but for some reason, my seizures began to get really, really serious at that time. I got to a point where I was having 20 seizures a day. I couldn't drive, I couldn't work, I couldn't go out basically on my own for most of the time. I was a vegetable, basically. I couldn't do anything. Now, that was also a time at which my urinary problems began to increase because I was not able to hold my urine when I had a seizure, and I would frequently do things as things progressed and became worse. I would end up in toilets, and by the way, women's toilets. If the signs on the toilet said men and women, that was fine, or if they said men and ladies rather, that was fine. I could cope with that okay. But if it said men and women, for some reason I couldn't read the WO on the women, and I would end up in the ladies' toilet. I used to have a girlfriend who was blind, and we would go to the shopping centre together, and I'd have a seizure and I'd get my wallet out and I'd put it in my girlfriend's hand and take myself off to the ladies' toilet. She'd be standing there in the middle of the shopping centre going round and round in circles saying, Barry, where are you? Where are you? You're doing this again. The police would come and rescue me out of the ladies' toilet and say, Barry, Julie's standing out there turning around in circles and you're doing it again, you're in the ladies' toilet again, come on, out you come. But they were some of the funnier things that happened. Unfortunately, as I became worse, I used to fall downstairs. I used to lie down in the middle of Maroondah Highway. The ambulance guys got used to coming and picking me up out of the middle of Maroondah Highway. I fell off railway stations a couple of times onto the tracks. As I said, I frequently fell downstairs. And when I went to a toilet, if I was in a public toilet, I'd go to the public toilet and I would have a seizure in the toilet and then not be able to get out because I couldn't find how to unlock the door. So that would exacerbate the seizure, and I'd end up smashing myself to bits on the toilet bowl. And if you've never bitten your tongue off, I did that frequently. It's very painful, but tongue's amazing. It grows back really, really quickly, and got a lot of blood in it, of course. So, this became an increasing problem for me. Now, I was talking to my neurologist one day, and I said, Mark, there's some experimental surgery that is going around at the moment, and I want to have a look at it. This experimental surgery meant that I was going to have part of my brain removed. It had never been successful prior to this. They'd have lots of cases where some seizures had ceased, but the patients were still having seizures. And the surgeon, on the day that they were going to do on the day I had a meeting with him to talk about it, he said to me, now there are three possibilities here. One is that you could die on the table. The other is that you might not have any appreciable effect out of this, and you might just keep having seizures. And the third one is that you might become a vegetable. I looked him in the eye and I said, Mark, I'm a vegetable anyway. It doesn't make any difference. Let's just get on and do this. So they did. They took out a large portion of my right temporal lobe, and I became one of Australia's very first complete successes. Never had a seizure again until just a couple of years ago, but for 30 years, never had a seizure. Went back to an ordinary life, or a reasonably ordinary life. Went back to university, did several degrees, including studying a PhD, and worked in cochlear implant medicine. And so, my life totally changed. After I'd had that surgery, my life just totally changed. Now, after that, and I when I was in university, in my first year, because I had bowel complications after my surgery as a kid, I ended up with bowel atrophy, or actually with bowel adhesions. And in my first year back at university, on the week before finals exams, I had the most shocking pain in my bowel, was rushed off to hospital, and had to have my bowel resected. So the lecturer for my main course at uni contacted me and said, "You're not going to be able to sit for your exam, are you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" "Of course I'm going to be able to sit for my exam. I'm just in hospital for a few days, that's all." So I had to do it after everybody else had finished, of course, but I wrote my paper and submitted it. And that paper actually eventually got published in one of the national magazines that for eye and ear surgery. So what are the now, as I said, in September, I was diagnosed with bladder cancer. I've gone through BCG, to which I reacted very, very badly, and they ceased that after one shot at it, and I was sent off to a major hospital in Brisbane because my current urologist, or the urologist then, said to me, "Look, this is really serious. You're not going to be able to cope with this. You need to go and have a cystectomy." So I had a really good cry and came to terms with my loss. went off to the hospital in Brisbane, and when I was sitting talking to the urologist in the hospital in Brisbane, he said to me, he said, we don't want to do that. That's a very American response, and we don't want to take your bladder out. We want to try and preserve it if we can. We'll try you on BCG again, and we'll try it on half strength. So that was a great relief to me, I can tell you. Although I've learned a lot from you guys about the not sure that advantages is the right word, but the advantage of having a urostomy bag and so on. So yeah, if it comes to that, I've come to terms with it. So what are the lessons that I want to leave with you today? First of all, the most important thing that I ever learned out of my epilepsy was to laugh. I learned to laugh at the situations, and as I said to you earlier, I've got lots of really funny stories about places where I ended up that you would never believe, and some of the things that I did that I look back on now and I say, well, that was a bit of a laugh. So I learned to turn things, and those of you who are following me on Facebook will have seen that I make a joke of things all the time. I turn what could be terrible situations into a joke and have a bit of a laugh about it. The second thing that I've learned, and I've done this more so now with my bladder diagnosis than I ever did when I had epilepsy, is to build a community. And that, of course, is what I've been doing with you awesome guys and people on the other Facebook groups, is building community so that I have people around me that are on the same journey that I can share with, that I can talk to, that understand where I am. And I'm just so grateful to all of you here that have been connecting with me and supporting me. It's just so important, and I'm sure it is to you too. Just so important to have people that understand. You'd know as well as I do that there are some things like perineal pain that you can't share with anybody else. Nobody knows what it's like. Nobody knows the agony of really severe perineal pain, and you can't explain it. But here and online, I don't have to explain it because you guys all understand anyway. The next thing that I would leave with you is that you be in control. Don't let your condition control you. Grab a hold of it and say, no, I'm not going to be a victim to this. I'm in control of it. I'm going to be the master of whatever happens to me. Now, I'm not suggesting that you be so over positive that you don't face reality. Obviously, we're all on a journey where we need to face reality, but you can be in control of the things that happen to you, and once you let go and you let the conditions start controlling you, that's a very slippery slope. Now, finally, what I would the mantra of my life, and the thing that I especially would like to leave with you, is that you live today like that you live life like today is the last day of your life. So you live today as though it's the last day of your life. So you pack everything you possibly can into every day. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I'm out there promoting bladder cancer awareness and all the rest of it. None of us knows how long we've got left, and I want to get out there and just use every single day that I've got to make sure that people know about it and that I do something positive. But at the same time, you plan as though you're going to live forever. So you live as though today is the last day of your life, but you plan as though you're going to live forever. That will keep you in good stead for getting through the tough times. And once again, I love you guys. Thank you so much for having me here with you, and all my best to all of you. Let's stay in touch and keep each other informed about what's happening in our lives. And thank you so much for having me with you.